Hi, today's cards feature the new stamp set Beach Stuff 1 from Blue Knight Rubber Stamps. This is a clear stamp set which features horses, crabs, sand dollars, butterflies, starfish, and seagull. I'm also going to be using the Ocean Waves stamp set. This is an older stamp that was released previously, has 4 different sentiments. The ocean is everything I want to be, beautiful, mysterious, wild, and free. Sometimes you just have to go with the waves. The ocean's roar is music to the soul. Mightier than the waves of the sea is his love for you. So I have a piece of cardstock here. This is smooth. You want to use smooth cardstock when you're creating with pan pastels. I've never used this stamp set before, but what I'm going to be doing is using my archival ink and stamping the waves halfway up from the bottom on my cardstock. I'm going to be using pan pastels to color this in. Now, for the pan pastels, I have some that have metallics in them. So they are nice colors for beachy scenes. And bronze is a really nice color for the sand. So I'm starting with bronze and just following the line art and just coloring in where it would be sand. If you're not familiar with pan pastels, they are a finely milled pastel. They are in pans and they're artist grade. They're very vibrant. It's like you're using ink without anything wet because they're dry. There's minimal fallout, so there's not a lot of dust. It's not the same as a chalk. It's more, like I said, of a finely milled product, which reminds you of a real finely milled eyeshadow or something like that. It has that kind of silky consistency. Now I'm taking and getting some blue, turquoise blue color of pan pastels, and I'm using that for the water. And I'm just filling this in. And I'm trying to keep the area of the wave that's sort of like the billowy area, the mist area. I'm trying to keep that white. So I'm not working with a lot of different colors in my pan pastels. I'm just switching between this turquoise blue and then like a darker blue. So again, this is for Blue Knight Rubber Stamps, and they do sell pan pastels. I'll have linked in my description box below where you can find these products over on Blue Knight Rubber Stamps. I'm using this eraser to erase any of the blue that I accidentally colored inside where it should be white, like the foam, I guess is what they call it, with the sea, and when the waves come crashing in. Blue Knight Rubber Stamps has they have 3 different, I guess what you would call starter kits for pan pastels. I would highly recommend using those as your jumping off point if you're going to start creating with pan pastels. They have the sunrise sunset, which has your yellows and golds and orange and a little bit of red. And then you have the day and night, which is like the blues. And then they have the pastels. And each comes in a palette and has some tools that get you started, like some of the foam applicators. Okay, so then I grabbed the Blue Knight Rubber Stamp Cloud Stencil, and I'm going to create just some clouds in the background. And I'm just using some blending. I have some colorless blender that I use. By the way, each one of those sets that they sell over at Blue Night with the pan pastels includes a colorless blender. And so I fussed around with this for a little bit. I did erase some of that. It seemed like it was a little bit too dark for me. I was just trying to get sort of like the differentiation between the clouds and the water. I was just working on that a little bit more here. If you're not familiar with pan pastels, they're great to work with. They're, like I said, very vibrant. You can do all kinds of backgrounds. You can use them to color in a stamp. You can, do different techniques with them as far as shading and applications. And when you're done and you have your card stamped and you have everything ready, then you want to spray it with some kind of sealant. So I just use hairspray. I just take it and I spray that panel lightly with some hairspray, aerosol hairspray. And then that kind of like seals that in, because the pan pastels will rub off a little bit if you don't do that sealing part. So that's just something to keep in mind, but they're easy to work with and they can really help you create something really quick, and you don't have to worry about your fingers getting ink stains all over them because the pan pastels will just wash right off. And the sets over at Blue Night are really the best way to get started, and they do last you forever. So I'm pretty pleased with how this is coming along. I'm using one of the mini applicators that's shaped like an eyeshadow applicator just to get that blue in those sections of the waves where they belong. So here's a close-up picture of what it's looking like right now. And you'll notice that I did not remove the paper from my platform. So I can go back in and restamp the image again. Sometimes this is a good idea if you're using a lot of pan pastels and you want to sharpen up that image after you apply the pan pastels. You can do this next step. And so, by the way, my ink pad has the magnetic ink pad handle that you could get over at Blue Night. It's like a wood block with magnets in it. And then you put the magnet plate down on your ink pad, and then you are able to stamp without the problem of dropping your ink pad, which is very frustrating. Especially if you're this far along in the process, that's the last thing you want to do. I'm going to pull this off, and I do need to put the sentiment on and get it ready for the horses. So I thought this would look nice with the horses from the Beach Stuff 1 stamp set. Now the horses are, all the stamps in this Beach Stuff 1 are photopolymer clear stamps. So I can grab my Misty and I'm just arranging these horses so they appear like they're galloping along the waters. In Maryland, there's a island, I think it's called Assateague Island, where you can see these wild ponies, and basically they live on the island. It's such a cool experience to be out in the middle of the ocean, and then all of a sudden you're like at this place where there's all these wild ponies everywhere. They're very pretty too. One year we were so lucky, we went there when we went to Ocean City, Maryland, and we took a tour of the like it was like a boat ride. And Jacob was probably only 5 years old, my son. But I'll never forget that. The ponies were there. They were up near everybody. You know, you can't touch them or anything, but you know, you don't feed them or anything like that. You just like look at them. But they're so cool. And like we got a picture of us and the horses in the background, the wild ponies. Okay, so I'm going to make this scene with 3 horses. So I'm going to take the first horse that I stamped and go ahead and stamp that one again. So yes, you can stamp on your pan pastels. You can stamp and that'll show up very nicely. I did stamp it multiple times to get the intensity of ink that I wanted. I didn't want it just to be really light. I wanted it to be bold. Okay, so I'm pleased with how this is looking so far, but I do need to put a sentiment on here, and I just feel like it needs something along the bottom just to frame it a little bit better. So I'm bringing in the grass that's part of the Flamingos and Wild Grass stamp set. And I'm using VersaFine Onyx black ink. Any black ink would work. You could use archival or you could use VersaFine Clair, but I'm just using regular VersaFine here. And I will have to stamp it multiple times to get the intensity that I hope for. And I wanted to mention while I'm on here that I haven't been on here for about 2 weeks with a video. Well, 2 weeks ago I had planned to do a video, but I lost the footage. And then last week I had my right knee replaced. And I've already had my left knee replaced 3 years ago. But having my second knee replacement, it's been a lot worse as far as the recovery than the first one. I think because I let it go for so long and my leg became extremely bowed from arthritis. So the recovery has been a lot more difficult. But it's been a week today and I'm feeling better. And I'm doing my physical therapy at home. And I still take some pain medicine, especially when it's time for me to do my physical therapy. I'm not sleeping the best at night, but I'm trying. And I'll just take naps during the day while I can. So in case you were wondering how I was doing, that's a little update on me. I go back to the doctor December 2nd. So hopefully I'll keep making progress every day and hopefully get to the point where I can be more comfortable at night so I can sleep. Okay, back to the card here. I felt like my area needed a little bit more fill in, so I grabbed Sand Castles and Accessories stamp set. There's a small stamp in that set that looks like wild grass that you would see at the ocean. So I'm just using an acrylic block and I'm using my VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink and I'm just going to stamp that freehand underneath these horses. Yes, I think this little bit of grass fills this area in nicely. Okay, now I'm going to pick the sentiment. And I like the one that says, "The ocean is everything I want to be, beautiful, mysterious, wild, and free." Okay, now that I have my sentiment done, I'm going to trim this down a little bit and mat it. I'm going to use a navy blue for my mat behind this. Alright, after I trimmed it and put a mat, this is what it looks like, the finished product. Thank you so much for watching my video. If you like this card, please give this video a thumbs up. Please leave a comment. Let me know what you think about the design of this card and using pan pastels. If you like to use pan pastels, and what's your experience been like with using them. And this is the other card that I created using the new clear stamps, and I grabbed a previously released stamp called Path to the Beach, and I used Beach Stuff 1 and just stamped various of those throughout this image. So you'll see I have stamped some sand dollars, some crabs, some starfish, and some of the seagulls. And for the Path to the Beach, I colored it in using the same colors of pan pastels that I used when I created the card that you watched me create with the ocean waves. I just created this one off camera. I didn't use any video when I created this one. But both of them were created with the new Beach Stuff 1 stamp from Blue Knight. That's all for my video today. Here's a photo of both cards together. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to give a thumbs up and leave a comment. I greatly appreciate it. Have a hopeful day. Bye-bye.